I'm Bonnie Squires. I'm the host and producer of Bonnie's Beat. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne. We broadcast to Lower Merion Township, Radnor Township, and beyond the pale sometimes also. We like to showcase people who are doing important things in the community, whether it's academics or even athletics, whether it's charities, whether it's politics. And today we have some terrific people in the studio with us. One is Judith Meyer, the President Emerita of the Anti-Defamation League, or ADL, as those of us who are on the board call it. And Blane Stoddart, who's a friend, who's a mover and shaker in the newly constituted Black Jewish Alliance of the ADL. Welcome, Blane. Welcome, Judith.
Hi, Thanks for having us.
And Blane, I forgot the name of your business. It's BFW, but I forget what it stands for.
BFW stand for Blaine Fitzgerald Works, and we're a project management company. We're not a general contractor, but we're owners' representatives. We manage construction work on behalf of owners, and we manage general contractors to make sure that if you're building a large home or a 40-unit multifamily building, or if you're building Comcast, that the project is done properly.
Is Comcast one of your clients?
Yes, Comcast accounts for half my business, so I'm very happy about Comcast.
Wow. Isn't it? You love David L. Cohen, then.
I love David Cohen. And we have around 13 staff, and half of my staff are working on the Comcast project.
Wow, that's the new building?
Yes, that's the new Comcast Innovation and Technology Center.
Fantastic. Now, Judith, when you're not doing a lot of pro bono work for ADL, you're also a mediator. Explain what that means.
I am, first of all, a lawyer. I was a trial lawyer for many decades, but realizing that my clients did not think litigation was the best way to solve their problems, although neither they nor I knew of any better way, I stumbled upon mediation. This is in the late 80s, and it was like, a light bulb went off, and I said, this makes sense. Maybe the clients who are fighting in court through their lawyers should actually talk to one another and come to a resolution, especially if it's a business problem, especially if they have an ongoing relationship, as in maybe Comcast, a contractor, and a subcontractor. And so I began to try mediation as a way of solving the legal problems that were brought to me for litigation. And then I gradually morphed into full-time mediation, and I also work as an arbitrator. If you don't want to solve your problems consensually, I'm happy to hear them and decide them. And as a referee for the Commonwealth Court, and as a judge pro tem for the Commerce Court of Philadelphia.
Did you ever think of running for judgeship?
Oh, yes. That's, yes. Yes.
Did you ever run for judgeship?
I interviewed. I was very naive. I would have run, and probably in California where I practiced, I probably would have been appointed by the governor. He would have been the first black governor of the state of California, Tom Bradley, but he did not win. In California, governors or judges are appointed by governors with the oversight of the bar. In Pennsylvania, it's a political contest, which I very much dislike.
And you have to give a lot of money to get the ward leaders to back you.
Well, yes. Yeah, and then you have to raise a lot of money, all the while professing your neutrality as a judge, which I find corrupt. And I did interview for judgeship in Montgomery County very early on in my life here, when I moved here, and they said, basically they said, you're a Democrat, what are you doing here? I didn't realize Montgomery County was Republican.
Well, that was a long time
And
ago.
they said, you're very qualified, but we don't know you. I just moved from California. And I said, but that's all the better, because I don't owe anybody anything. I will be so fair and neutral. But that was my first foray into politics. I then ran for commissioner of my township in 1993, which was another experience.
Was that in California or here?
No, here.
What township?
Lower Merion, your township.
I don't remember that you ran for...
It was. You're not in my ward, Bonnie.
Oh, okay.
I'm Ward 10.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know from Ward 10. Ward 10 was like
It's
another
Bryn
country.
Mawr. It's Bryn Mawr, Haverford.
It's
So
another
where
country.
people would say to me when I knocked on their door, they'd say, "You're really qualified. You really should win, and I will vote for you on one condition." And I said eagerly, "What's that?" They said, "Change your party." And I was like, "What? This is a local election. What are you talking about?" Anyway.
And Blane, you live in Ardmore.
I live in Ardmore, yeah.
But is that the Lower Merion side or the Delaware County side?
Yeah, I live in Lower Merion,
Lower Merion.
right
Okay,
next
we
to
got-
the mall.
We're all Lower Merionites. Okay, great. Now, the reason that we're here today, we're here to talk about the Black Jewish Alliance of the ADL. Now, Blane, did you reach out to Robin Burstein, one of our deputy directors, or did she reach out to you? Or I don't even know how we got involved, but the three of us are very involved with this alliance.
I went to the Americanism Award last year, and someone got up and started talking about racism and anti-Semitism. And I thought I was invited by Bill Sasso, who is a Republican, but one of the greatest.
He's one of the good guys. I love him. He's wonderful.
So Bill Sasso is my mentor for the CEO Access Network at the Greater Philadelphia Chamber, and he invited me to the Americanism Award, and it was given to a lawyer over at Cozen O'Connor. I think he's the chairman.
Michael Heller.
Michael Heller
He
was the
just
recipient.
happens to be Steve Cozen's nephew. He's
Right,
also a
right,
brilliant attorney.
Right. So Mike Heller was the recipient, and before Michael Heller got up, or after he got up, somebody got up and said something about the ADL. And my first thought was, why am I not a member of the ADL?
Well, you don't look Jewish. Although we have a number of non-Jew. We had our first Muslim who's been on the board,
Okay.
Mr. Ibrahim, and we've got Lorena Marshall Blake from Independence Blue Cross, who's a board member. Are you on the board yet?
No,
for it?
I'm not on the board yet.
You're on the board.
But the ADL was, and I'm still gathering information. I'm still in the information gathering stage. But the ADL was founded in 1913 after a Jewish man was lynched in Georgia.
That's almost factually correct. After he was convicted
After he was
of
convicted.
a murder he did not commit.
Okay.
And then he was
He
lynched.
was lynched in 1915 after the
Yeah.
governor commuted his sentence because he didn't commit the crime.
Right.
And good Georgia citizens were so angry, they lynched him at a public party. I mean, it was a social event.
Horrible,
right.
horrible.
So the ADL has been around for, would you say, 100 years? 100?
More 104 years.
104
Yeah.
years. So this organization has been around for 104 years. And I mean, I'd seen statements over the years made by the ADL about about racism and anti-Semitism, but I never thought about it. I was like, okay, it's a Jewish group. But when I went to the Americanism Award and really found out more about what the ADL stood for, I was like, oh my God, why aren't... So that was part of it. The second part was, I heard a speech right after President Trump was elected. There was an alt-white convention in Washington, D.C. Like within a month, there was an alt-white convention. And
The white nationalists are on the move.
Yes, and the white nationalists came to Washington and they had a convention. And I heard one of the speeches, it was on YouTube, but one of the speakers got up and the things that were coming out of his mouth, I thought it was 1950. And so I was like, wow. I was like, wow.
How are they brave enough to say those bigoted, racist remarks in public and post it on YouTube?
Yep. And what shocked me was the rhetoric. Maybe the people were different. The people, seemed to be a younger crowd. It was not an older crowd. And the rhetoric was the same from 1913, from 1915. The rhetoric had not changed. Maybe the faces got younger. Maybe people had on a suit instead of a white coat. But the rhetoric, and
Instead of a white hood, you mean?
Instead of a white hood. And what shocked me was the hatred, the mutual hatred for blacks and Jews. And so, we started talking to the ADL long before, several months before the president was elected and there was the alt-right convention. But to actually see racism, anti-Semitism, bigotry, and hatred in our nation's capital, obviously this is a free country. You can say whatever you want. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't break the law. That is our constitutional protection. but at the same time, it motivated me. Well, the first question was, when I saw that, when I heard the speech at the ADL Americanism event last year, when I saw the power of the alt-white movement and them being mainstreamed by half our media, I was like, oh my God, I got to become an activist in the ADL, because the ADL has the longest history of dealing with anti-Semitism, has one of the longest histories in this country of dealing with anti-Semitism and racism on an ongoing educated manner, in terms of educating the public, in terms of educating our children, in terms of having a media program second to none, in talking when there's defamation, in addressing that. And so my question was, why aren't blacks and Jews working together? That was my question.
Well, let's say 30 years ago,
I know.
there was a very strong working relationship between African Americans and Jewish Americans. And then with a Supreme Court decision, about who should be allowed special circumstances to get into college, whatever.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Yeah.
There was a breakdown in the relationship, unfortunately. But it's coming back together again. We're working hard on that.
Right. And so we in Philadelphia, we have taken a leadership role. I mean, normally, again, presidential candidates come out of Boston, they come out of Texas, they come out of Yale and Harvard. But Philadelphia has been in a leadership role in the United States forever, since 1776, I think. And a little document called the Constitution of the United States was drafted right here in Philadelphia. But since that time, I feel that nationally, we have not taken a leadership role like we should in the national debate. And this is a national issue. This issue of blatant racism, of blatant anti-Semitism, the spread of social media to allow you to say anything you want, whether it's true, whether it's false, or whether it's true, is just spiraling out of control. And so there has to be a response to that in an educated way, in an educated, informative way, where we actually present facts to people instead of alternative news. Because it seems right now that alternative news, which is not factual, is bigger than actual news. And so I feel that the Black Jewish Alliance of the ADL is actually a seed that's being planted in Philadelphia. But the seed can germinate and generate fruit all over the country, because in urban areas where there's a concentration of blacks and Jews, or in suburban areas around the country where there's an active ADL chapter, I feel, and again, this is my opinion, that there should be a Black Jewish Alliance of the ADL in that chapter. And so we're hoping that this coalition, this alliance, bears fruit and becomes a national movement where blacks and Jews can sit down together at the board of the ADL, or as a subcommittee of the ADL, at chapters across the country, to actually address the issues that are mutual to them. Now, is every issue going to be mutual to us? The answer is no. The answer is no.
But Charlottesville, that was something
Absolutely.
that resonated with all of us. And we're about 24 members now of the Alliance. The last meeting we had, right, Judith?
Yes.
There were a couple dozen
Around
people
20,
there.
Around 20 people, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, but there were some that were absent.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're about 24 well-meaning folks that are carrying forth this message. And you're going to hear more about us in the future.
Absolutely.
And Blane gave a wonderful presentation at our last meeting, group meeting, as a matter of fact. Judith, talk about some of the plans that we have about going out into the community.
Our thought is that, well, first of all, our initial thought is before we go out into the community, we need to become more comfortable with each other. We all live in our own bubbles. There are lots of sensitive issues that are difficult to talk about, and we've agreed not to talk about them. We can, in time, when we build trust, But it's important just to become comfortable, and I, for one, when I joined this, saw it as a huge opportunity. I've lived my entire life. I grew up in a white community, going to a white grade school. I lived near another community that had been on the Underground Railroad. I lived in Winnetka, Illinois, and Glencoe, Illinois had been a spot. So there was a very small black community in that neighborhood. They're very small. I went to high school, and there were a few blacks in my 1,000-person class. But it never occurred to me. They weren't in my classes. I didn't invite them to my home. I mean, they were there. I was aware. In my college, Barnard College, I don't think there was a black woman. If she was, she might have been from an African country, a daughter of one of the governing persons of an African country, but I don't even remember. We had one black man in my law school class at Cornell, and he was very unhappy because he felt so marginalized, and so he was a wonderful spokesperson. He spoke beautifully, and I've kept in touch with him, and he said he hated law school because he was just, no one would talk to him.
My first job out of Penn, I taught English and a little bit of French at Yaden High School. And I remember one day the assistant principal came into my classroom. This was in, I guess, the 1960s.
Wow.
And he took me aside and he said, Mrs. Squires, the federal government is doing a survey. We need to know, and the word those days was Negro. How many Negro students do you have in this class? And I said, I never counted, but I guess 4 or 5. And then we turned around, and of the 25 students, 12 were African American. I had never noticed that half the class was African American. I never saw color. I just saw kids, So, and that's why I always loved the ADL, because the ADL, anytime there's somebody that's ganging up on blacks or Muslims or Jews, they call the ADL. And the ADL, they're great problem solvers. Judith is a past president. We have a whole history of amazing people that have been in the president's seat. And the staff are always on the go, writing letters, op-eds, meeting with principals. So, but Blane, you did such a good job outlining what the Black Jewish Alliance could do. Right. Why don't you talk about some of those ideas?
Well, Bonnie, the first thing I'm going to talk about, the first thing that we've talked about doing together is talking to the media and educating the media when something negative happens in the community, for the Black Jewish Alliance, or the ADL, to respond in concert, following the protocol of the ADL. But the optics is very important, to actually get in front of the cameras, both in mass media, broadcast media, print media, and social media, and respond to that in a coordinated fashion. That hasn't been done before, at least not at the local level. Now, maybe it's been done at the national level when there's a national racist catastrophe. But again, we don't, from somebody who watches CNN every day, at least my wife does, we don't see that. And optics are important. I think as Americans, we are a visionary society. We believe what we see first. And so, maybe some of the times we should read more, but that's just the way it is. And so it's imperative that when something happens in the community, that the Black Jewish Alliance can respond to that as a coalition of leaders. And I don't like to use the word leaders, because once you start using the word leaders, every leader is going to come and say, well, why am I not on it? And that's why we're an alliance. And we're primarily made up of business people. We're business people. It's the staff of the ADL, and it's community people that are very involved in their communities that tend to be at the ADL. And so that's number one, responding in a proactive way, or even before something happens, as a group in the media, and getting the word out that we're here to actually promote blacks and Jews working together in a cohesive manner to address the issues of racism, anti-Semitism, and prejudice. And that's the first thing. The second thing that we thought about was to take on the issue of bias. We don't know that we're biased, but we are. Everybody's biased. I'm biased, you're biased, you're biased. But bias is subconscious. So we of our own selves, we only can remember our conscious. We don't remember our subconscious except when we dream, maybe. But what bias does is it brings into our consciousness what's in our subconscious, so that at least we have information and we have power to address it if we want to. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with that, but that's the sort of thing that we're gonna deal with as an alliance. The third and last thing that we're going to do is we're going to educate. We're going to actually go into the community and educate. And what we're thinking about right now is going into schools, synagogues, mosques, churches, and actually do an experiential workshop, with some professionals involved, so that we do it right, about what it is to be Jewish and what it is to be black, and what it means to me and what it means to you. Because even if we haven't had any negative experiences, we know someone that has, or there are just certain cultural or different issues that we face as Jews or as African Americans. And we talked about this in our meetings. We talked about the plastic bag. I teach my kids, when you're going to the store, you have to get a receipt and a plastic bag, and you put whatever you bought into the bag and the receipt. I'm not sure if Caucasian parents have to teach their kids that.
You can't just walk out holding something.
You can't just walk out holding something in your hand. If you are black, African American, West Indian, Negro, you cannot do that. You just can't do it. Because 9 times out of 10, you may be accused of theft and arrested on the spot by Lower Merion Police or whatever township you're in. Because your word does not measure up to the clerk's word. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes. You're wearing a very interesting pin. I want Judith to explain what the No Place for Hate, which is an ADL trademark, right?
It's trademarked. It's one of
Yes.
the signature programs that we run in the middle schools and high schools, training our school children in respect for diversity, for the value of diversity, training them in civil discourse, sensitizing them to bullying, making them, we have peer trainers who are trained to intervene when they see a child being bullied or a child being the subject of racist epithets or slurs. They are trained to tamp down the energy and the negative emotion, but then to explore with the students, hey, what's going on? Why are you doing this?
When a school,
or bring in a teacher.
When a school is accepted for the No Place for Hate program, they have to jump through a series of hoops. They don't just say, okay, we're against hate and bias. It doesn't work that way. They have to sign a pledge. Everybody has to sign a pledge. They have to create some diversity programs that they run throughout the course of the year in their school. They'll have to have a special lunch table where the kids mingle together. You can't just sit with the kids you always sat with. You got to take in some new people. So it's a whole program that's amazing. And in Pennsylvania, the ADL of Southeastern Pennsylvania has hundreds of schools now. And there's a big ceremony and a banner when a school is accepted to the No Place for Hate program. It's a big deal. It's wonderful. And it also identifies where people can call, whom they can contact if there's a threat in the community. And unfortunately, we've seen a number of incidents recently. Somebody finds a rope hanging on a tree. The message is clear. It's very scary, very scary. And the phone calls come to the Anti-Defamation League office in Center City.
But I'm not sure, Bonnie, if even some of the young people that are doing this, I heard about an incident in South Jersey the other day where there was a doll and they hung the doll on a noose and left it on a tree. So, it's high school, again, 99% of the time it's around the school, probably a kid did it. And the issue is, I'm not sure if they understand the depth of what that means. Do you understand what I'm saying? They've
Yes.
seen it on social media.
Yes.
So are these kids really understanding that that represents a lynching? And do they really understand the depth of emotion of what a lynching represents? You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like it's on social media now. So if somebody doesn't like somebody, they do it as a prank. They may be doing it as a trick. They may say, "I hate you" or "I don't like you," and that's the way. But I'm not sure if they understand the history and the symbolism of what that means.
Also,
And we'd love to get your comment on that.
I don't think they do, and in the same way, I'm not sure they don't understand this, but when anti-Semites say Hitler should have finished the job or you should end up in Hitler's ovens, I don't know if they realize the emotional enormity of that for Jews who lost, at this point it would be extended family members in the Holocaust.
Right.
The reality of that for a Jew, I was born on the day Anne Frank died,
Right.
which you can figure out my age. But
Interesting.
there it is.
Right.
But she is known to the entire globe. But she died of typhus in a concentration camp, a horrible death. And so when the camps are referred to, I know that my peers, but for the fact that my grandfather had the very good sense to leave Tsarist Russia and come here, I would have been born in Lithuania or the Pale of Russia, and I would likely not have survived. It's real.
Wow.
It's immediate. And so, lynching, I visited Brian Stevenson's Center for Equal Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. He has a wall the size of this studio filled with big glass jars. I'll show you a picture after we're through taping. You know what's in those jars?
Fingers, heads?
Earth.
Okay.
Earth from. Every jar is labeled with a date and a name.
Wow.
They are all the lynching sites that he has been
Ooh.
able to identify
Ooh.
throughout the South. And he went to each
Wow.
one and filled a huge jar with earth and
Clay.
labeled it with the name of the victim.
Wow.
And the place.
unbelievable.
And that's it. Just takes your breath away.
But you mentioned social media, and that's one of the important programs that the ADL has come up with. It's an anti-cyberbullying program to teach parents and teachers and superintendents and kids how to avoid torturing somebody or how to fight back if someone's being tortured. And unfortunately, we read in the paper almost every week where a teenager commits suicide because they've been bullied online and they've been made fun of, and it made them so miserable that they thought life wasn't worth living.
Right.
It hurts your heart when you read those stories.
And again, we're happy to be working with the ADL because there's just such information out there. One of our committee members, Lisa, who is Jewish, was telling me that she went to college. I mean, I didn't know this. She went to college, and her roommate did not know that she was Jewish. And when she told her, they were talking, and she said, "Hey, I'm Jewish." And the person said, "Where are your horns?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, this person really believed that
Yeah.
she had horns. And that's the first time I never heard that before.
Oh, we've heard it.
We've lived with that.
If you're Jewish, you've
Yeah,
heard
we
it
know.
many times.
And so
And when-
the amount of misinformation out there, the amount of ignorance, the amount of hate.
I had scrawled on my driveway when I lived in Los Angeles, chalked, "Jew, go back to Israel." And I looked at it, And I said, gee, I've never been to Israel.
Right.
You know, go back.
Right, go back to
the assumption that was my home state.
The whole point of the Black Jewish Alliance, or the ADL, is not only to educate ourselves, but to educate the public on all. I mean, you think that after 100 years, that some of this misinformation would sort of get buried, and every couple of years, it's almost like the stock market; it goes up and down.
Every time you think you're finished.
Right.
Well, I think we're finished for today's discussion. Our guests have been Blane Stoddart and Judith Myers, and the three of us are involved with the Black Jewish Alliance of the Anti-Defamation League, and we'll see everybody next week.